Welcome to part 2. If you didn't listen to yesterday's, all about love. And I'm not talking about love necessarily with another human, but if you want to have some love with some other human, great. But I'm talking about you and your life and your love and what you are here to do. Oh, this conversation is something I love to talk about. Okay, here is the practical part today, part 2. So yesterday, hopefully what you did was you listed some of the things you want to be, do, have and feel, but also what's on your love list. So the things that make you feel really good or what you like to do, what you love, etc. Now are the practical questions. And here's what we might find. Resistance that you can't do these things all the time, or the things that you love are meant for other people, or you only get to do them once a year. I see this everywhere in conversations that I overhear on the bus, but also the way that people talk about things, where they all say things like, when you get married, it's going to be the most happiest day of your life, and then that's it. And you're like, that's it? But what happens afterwards? Like, I've had the most exciting day of my life ever. Okay. Right. Where do I go now? And yes, I'm not married, but like that does hold a lot of joy and excitement and all the rest of it. But I want to say that it's not just necessarily going to be those societal moments in your life. It's going to be those small things. It's going to be those everyday moments. It's going to be those cozy feelings, or that was so nice, or that felt really good, or I had such a good time. So first and foremost, I want to ask you, how often are you in that love state? How often are you doing and having and being and feeling in that moment where you're like, I really like my life. I'm really in love with my life. It feels really good. And this is a difficult thing. Sometimes we have months or weeks or years or periods of time where things don't feel like that. And I know that I've experienced this in my life where things have felt really stale, or I felt really stuck, or I haven't felt like me, or I've been in a relationship that I knew that I needed to leave, and in the end I did. But there have definitely been points in my life where I haven't felt all of those things. And so what I had to do in those moments, after a lot of ugly cries and trying various things and a lot of reflection and going within and all of these things that many of us resist doing because it's quite awful when you're in that state, to really ask, how can you start to make some changes? How can you start to move that dial? And those moments are very, very incremental. I've started hearing a lot of podcasts recently about a guy called James, I can't remember what his surname is, but he wrote that book, Atomic Habits, and he talks about doing something 1% more. And this was really, really interesting to me, and it changed the way that I started to look at life. And I was talking a little bit about this earlier, a couple of weeks ago, in terms of marginal gains. So there are certain things that I love to do in the morning. Like, I know that if I drink my tea from a certain mug, I just enjoy that morning cup of tea even more, rather than drinking from a mug that just doesn't sit well. And I know it's such a small thing, and people might be like, Nikki, you've got a cup of tea, so just be grateful for that. But what I'm looking at is, how can you max out these experiences? How can they feel really good? And I want to give you the nudge, perhaps the gentle nudge, or the arm round the shoulders, that if you've been feeling stuck or stale or just in that funk, like I have often, think about what you can do first. What's going to be the first tiny move that you can make that's going to make things feel a little bit better? And I want you to tune in with those things that are already happening. So those things that you do easily that make you feel really good. Now, I've realized over time that things like moving my body are a way to easily change my state. So if I go for a walk or a run or I do some yoga in my living room, 9 times out of 10, pretty much 10 out of 10, I know that I'll feel better. I know that I will clear whatever funk is going on. And sometimes that funk can't be cleared because I might be feeling in grief, or I might be feeling full of anxiety, or whatever it might be. But I know that I can move into a more feel-good state, let's just say. So that's a really great place to start. Asking yourself, how often do you feel in that love state? How do you get there easily? And how can you continue to do that? The second part to this is, where do you stop? Where do you hesitate? Where do you say to yourself, oh, and this is the one for me, you don't deserve it, or don't get too greedy, or it's not going to last, or any of those things that we're told. You can't have treats every day, or it's just another birthday. It's no big deal. And I know that I can go into that state somewhere where I really shy away from what I want, or I hold myself back, or I play small. And I've done a lot of work around this, because when I was at school, any point of difference or anything that was exceptional about you or different about you was automatically mown down. It was shut down, like, don't talk about that. Oh, who do you think you are? It was that sort of mentality. And so I learned pretty quickly to keep my mouth closed, to not say too much, to play small, to hold myself back, to shrink. And at the age of 40, I feel that it's time to move things. Now, that's not to say you're not going to see any like smug posts from me on the internet, like, oh my gosh, and my life is so blessed. And, you know, my mum always says this situation, like, I feel like some of social media is just boasting. I'm like, you've got that absolutely bang on. Like, there are some people who, share all the things. And there's definitely a fine balance. And that makes me sound like I'm judging them. And maybe I am a bit, if I'm really honest. But you have to find that line for you. You have to find that line that's going to feel really good. And also, the third part is, what are you willing to let go or to release in order to get more of the things that you want to be, do, and have and feel? Because there's going to be a need or a time or an urge or a lesson where you have to be willing to not take everything with you. And again, this has been a really tricky thing. Like, no, but I just want to do this, or I'll just be really, I found this a lot in terms of acting, where I've really been, I've gone into that humble part of myself. Like, oh, no, don't worry, I'll just get the tube home. Oh, don't worry, no, I don't need a taxi. Oh, no, don't worry about food or whatever. And I played, again, that sense of like, I don't want to be a bother to anybody. And then I realized in something in terms of acting is they actually want you to be fed and watered and taken care of so you can do the best job you can. And as soon as I saw that, I recognized it in terms of my own business. I remember doing a speaking gig and they offered a taxi home. I was like, oh, don't worry, the tube is just there. Like, that's absolutely fine. And I actually got followed by one of the people who was at that speaking gig. And that person came onto the tube with me and sat right next to me, invaded my space, spoke at me, and was very intimidating to a point where I had to say, okay, I'm going this way now, goodbye. And I didn't feel safe with this person. I didn't feel that, I felt like they crossed some boundaries, basically. And I learned from that lesson that I won't do that again. When you open up in that space, or if you're there as a leader or as an expert, I needed to put some better boundaries in place. And so I know I'm going a lot around the houses here, but in order to make room for more of the things that you love, these are conversations that you may end up having with yourself as a conversation. And it's okay, finally, to do this incrementally. Very rarely do things just happen overnight. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. That if you imagine in the snow, you can imagine Lapland or something like that. Sometimes you see those sledges that are pulled by huskies. And sometimes there's a moment where that sledge, the people within it and the huskies are in time. Like they're kind of, going along, they're enjoying themselves, they're seeing the snow all around. And then there are some times where those huskies are going for it. Like they are rattling along at a high speed. And the people who are in the sledge are like, whoa, this is going too fast. And then equally, there might be times where there's people in the sledge and they're thinking, why are these huskies not getting a wriggle on? Maybe they're just stopping, sniffing the snow a bit, having a look round. Maybe they're hungry, they're thinking about food, etc. And this is what can happen with your dreams or who you want to be. Sometimes you feel like you're going along, your current self and your future self, you're going along in a lovely rhythm. Sometimes it feels like your future self is dragging you forward. Like, come on, step up. You said you wanted this. Are you coming? Are you going to be brave? Are you going to do it? Come on. And sometimes it's got that slightly sinister edge where you're like, don't make me move out of my current state right now. I want to be here. It feels really comfortable. It's going too fast. Stop. And then sometimes you can feel like you're in that present state. You're in that present state doing the work. You are trying everything. You are healing. You are working. You are strategizing. You are closing. You are opening. You are saying yes. You are saying no. And that future self version is not coming through yet. There's a block. And so have a think about what you need to do in order to find that rhythm with yourself. And sometimes that's just you beginning this ride and beginning this first moment. I hope you've got lots from today. Feel free to take this episode on a walk, on a run, sit down on your sofa with a cozy cup of tea or coffee and play around with some of these questions. See what comes up. Also, if you've been sitting on an idea or a hope or a dream or a plan or something you want to do for a while now, I invite you to bring it to the surface, to explore it, to have some time with it and give it that time and energy and effort that it deserves. I often think that many of our plans and ideas, they've been planted in us. And I know when I've said this to people sometimes where they're like, really? And what I do in this circumstance is I ask the opposite. Tell me something you've never wanted to do. I've never had a desire to drive a train or drive a truck. And so there are some people that I recognize absolutely have had that. You hear about these people who are like, all I've ever wanted to do is to be a pilot. Great. But would they want to sing and dance on stage? Maybe not. So trust that those things within you are planted for a reason. Sometimes they're just there for a season or a year or two, but give yourself time and space to explore them. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in booking a pick and mix session, do go over to my website, nikkiraby.com/sessions. As I explained last week, there are only limited ones available per month because, as I mentioned last week, I am making space for all of the things that I love to do. I love coaching and I can't wait to help you. But I also, this is the thing, but I know what I meant to say is, and And I love all of the other things as well. And one of my goals for 2022 is not to work all of the hours. So I'm doing the things that excite me, that I love to do, and I would love to help you. They are available online with a recorded version, or we can meet face to face in central London. I look forward to hearing from you. And of course, they're open internationally as well, because I know I have lots of international listeners. Thanks so much for being with me today. I am sending you lots and lots of love, and I will see you again very soon. Bye for now.